learned how to be myself and understand how I really am.
What does that mean to you?
That means a lot because at school I can't be myself, but I can.
Camp Y Owasco operates over the summer, impacting the lives of hundreds of youth and teens. My name is Amy Wallner, and I work at the Auburn YMCA. I did not realize the impact that Camp Y Owasco could make on a child until I had my own. I hear stories, and I see my child get off the Camp Y Owasco bus dirty, with paint on him, tired, exhausted, muddy, and talking all the way home, and making new friends, and wanting to spend the night, wanting his 6-year dog tag this year.
But once you arrive at camp, it's an equalizer. There are so many things that you have in common. So even though people come from diverse backgrounds, what we focus on at camp is the things that everybody has in common. My name is Dorothea Hughes. I was camp counselor for 1 year, for one summer, and then the following summer I became the day camp director. And at that point, the day camp was located at Edgewater. In 1982, the day camp moved to Willowbrook. And in 1986, the day camp actually moved to Camp Y Owasco. And I was at Camp Y Owasco through 1989. The experiences at camp just lend themselves to growth on so many levels. It's not daycare, it's day camp. There is absolutely a distinction there.
Camp Y Owasco is still operating on the same land that was purchased in 1923, and this summer will be running for 9 weeks.
Summer camping on Owasco Lake has a long and impressive history that goes back well over a century.
Before the Auburn YMCA-WEIU had a permanent camping location, youth and leaders of the Auburn YMCA had to travel to many different locations to experience summer camp.
Camp Y Owasco, as we know it today, really started following the summer of 1922. My name is Luke Nettie. My camp name is Aries. At camp, I've spent as a child many years as a camper from when I was age 5 until I became part of the CIT program. After that, I spent a couple years as just a regular counselor. I was an assistant program director at one point. I went away for a little bit, came back. I was a day camp director with Melissa Kanga, and then now I serve on the camp committee. During that summer, it saw an abnormal amount of rain. A lot of bugs and mosquitoes were making it so that the tents were inhabitable. So following that summer, the Y board and the camp committee had to decide whether they were either going to discontinue trying to run their summer camp program or try and find a permanent location.
I'm just so thankful for the purchase of Camp Y Owasco and then the donation from the Emerson Foundation to expand it. And I just feel very fortunate to be a part of the Camp Y Owasco and the amazing things that has done for so many generations of families and people in our community. I'm Melissa Kanga-Kartner, and I'm the Camp and Family Director at the Auburn YMCA. So throughout the years, there's been many renovations, updates, and additions to Camp Y Owasco, but I'd say the one thing that hasn't changed or shifted at all is the core values that makes up Camp Y Owasco.
Camp Y Owasco has been a huge part of our community. The spirit of camping has been passed down from generation to generation.
My name is Tommy DL and I am 9 years old.
I'm Casey Hurling and I'm 11 years old.
I'm Ellie and I'm 9.
I'm Weston and I'm 5.
I'm Ava and I'm 10.
I'm Jack Dale and this is going to be my 10th year at camp this year and I'm 15 years old.
Every time I go to camp, I just feel like a whole new person because camp allows me to be my own person, and sometimes in school you don't always get that.
It's a special place to be there, and everyone enjoys it and everyone is nice to one another no matter what. It's definitely had a big impact on my life, learning new skills and meeting a lot of people.
Our mom went to camp, and our dad was a camp counselor with our mom.
My parents met at Camp Y Owasco a long time ago, and they ended up getting married, obviously, later.
My name is John DL,
My name is Jen DL.
and I worked at Camp Y Owasco for approximately 7 or 8 years during the 90s. And I was a camper before that when I was a kid until I was too old to go to camp and I had to work there.
I was a camper for 1 year, just a resident camp. Hated it. My mother sent me back for a second year as a CIT, a counselor in training. And then I think I was a counselor maybe 7 or 8 years through the early 90s. And I made an encore presentation in 2006 as the waterfront director.
When I was a camper a long time ago, they used to hand out an honor tribe paddle, which I think is back over here. You'd get to hold the honor tribe paddle for a full day till the next afternoon. But my tribe won it so many times in a row that we used to get a feather instead of the honor tribe paddle because we just kept it for a whole week. But then once I was a counselor and we were doing the same thing, we were awarding the honor tribe every day. I actually made the honor tribe paddle so that we could award that at camp. I found this broken canoe paddle at camp, and then actually the stenciling here, my father, who actually had worked at Y Camp, I don't know, probably in the 60s or the 50s maybe even, he'd given me this set of brass stencils, which I had no use for at all until it was time to make this honor tribe paddle. So I stenciled everything out and used the wood burner from the arts and crafts shed, and very, very pleased that it's still around. I mean, to me, it's something that I can still point to that, says that I was involved in camp, and this is something that is, hopefully will continue to be something they use for a long time to come, I hope.
I'm Matt Stewart, and I worked at Camp Y Owasco from 1993 to 1997.
And I understand your dad was also he was a camp director?
He was the camp director for at least 4 years in the late 90s. I worked there first before anyone in my family. My brother was also a counselor. I'm sure that he did the little lightning bolt in the middle of the honor tribe paddle. He was good at that kind of graphic design, kind of drawing things. And I think that the original lightning bolt did not look so much like a lightning bolt. But I'm sure that looks like Paul's work. I can just tell. But memories fade. John DL might claim that he did the whole thing himself, but I think the lightning bolt was Paul's.
My name's Dan Hurling. I was a camper at Camp Y Owasco for about 5 years in the 90s. And I was also a counselor in the sailing and water skiing areas for camp. And currently my son, Casey Hurling, is a camper as well. I just developed some really amazing lifelong friendships and relationships from camp. Friends that I have to this day, including my wife. My wife and I, we've been together since 2001. We actually met at Camp Y Owasco. I proposed to her at Camp Y Owasco. That place was such a foundation to our relationship and such a bonding point. I felt like it just made sense.
Greg Stoll. I worked at Camp Y Owasco for 5 years as both a counselor and the CIT director.
And I'm Rachel Stoll, and I was a camper for years before I became a counselor, and I ended up as the program director.
And we met at Camp Y Owasco.
I, had a rough childhood, and going to camp, I was able to just be a kid 100%. And there's a lot of kids who come through camp who come from pretty rough homes. So when they go to camp, even if they're not awkward at school, they don't have to worry about all of the home struggles, and they don't have to worry about all the different things that kids shouldn't have to worry about. And we're so proud of their accomplishments, and some of these kids, we're so proud of who they became.
And just the fun it is to be able to work with kids and see them grow.
Summer camping has had a lasting impact in our community for 100 years. We look forward to celebrating the next 100 years and continue the values and traditions that Camp Y Owasco has instilled.
So we tell them, we're from Y Owasco. We're from Y Owasco. And if they can't hear us, we'll sing a little louder. We'll sing a little louder. Everywhere we go, people want to know. People